Shh. What do you do with all those gift cards you got for Christmas? You improve your health by educating yourself about food that you eat and how it might be making you fat and sick. Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show. I'm your host, Terri Chrisman, and I'm a whole food, plant-based nutritionist, and this show gives you the tools to obtain optimal health so that you can live a long, happy life and age with grace and vitality. It's episode 54, and today I'm reviewing my favorite books. I'll give you the 25 words or less version of each of these books and why you need them in your library today. And each of these books can be purchased on my website, on the Amazon store of my website, fabuloushealth.net. But before we start, I just want to say thank you very much to everybody that's been watching the live podcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and everybody that's been listening on all your favorite podcast platforms. So I go live every Monday morning at 10 a.m. US Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And then I load up the audio to all your favorite podcasts directly afterwards. So you can listen to me on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spreaker, Podcast Addict, whatever it is that you like to listen to your podcast on. And if you want to sign up and subscribe to the podcast, then please go to fabuloushealth.net, click on the podcast tab, and then you'll be able to find all the links to your favorite podcasts right there. So you won't have to search for them, because believe me, there's so many podcasts out there in the world that when you try and search for them, it's nigh impossible to find the one that you actually want. Okay, so let's start the first book, and this is called The China Study. Now, this is the book that started it all. The book that scientifically proved that a whole food, plant-based diet was a protector against cancer and other lifestyle-induced diseases. So why was this book actually written? So in the 70s, the Premier of China was dying of cancer. So he initiated a survey to collect data on cancer in China. And what the researchers produced was just a map of China and the incidence of cancer. And the map showed the places where cancer was very prevalent and other places where it was rare. And this is all types of cancer, everything from prostate cancer, liver cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, the whole gamut of cancers. And then Dr. Campbell, who wrote this book, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, he was a doctor of nutrition, but you know what? He was looking at how he could make meat more nutritional for people, because he was a farmer and he was looking at all sorts of ways to make meat better for people and get better protein sources for people back in the 70s and 80s. Anyway, he wanted to know about this cancer phenomenon. So he went to China and he wanted to find out if diet had anything to do with it, because he was working in the meat industry. Anyway, what he found out is that meat was actually the precursor to all the cancers, and that really changed his mind about diet. And so this data is so important, because he went from a meat scientist to a plant scientist like overnight, and wrote this magnificent book, The China Study. And why is this study important? The study is so important because the data, all the people that were in the study were homogenous, meaning that they all came from the same race, the Han in China. So they all had similar bodies and similar risk factors. 95% of them lived in the place that they were born. So this data was very, very easy to just assemble and work out what was the cause and effect of these dietary differences in the people. So they compared the dietary patterns of the Chinese with the standard American diet, and they found that the Chinese people had less disease, but they ate less fat, less protein, less animal protein, but they ate more calories than the Americans, who were fatter and sicker. They also found that the more animal protein that was eaten by the Chinese, the higher the incidence of all cancers across the board. So this book, The China Study, is a must read. If you care about your health, please get this book, The China Study. As you can see, I got this one from the library because I actually have this on audiobook and on ebook, and I just wanted to show you the actual copy of the book. You can find more information on Dr. Campbell at nutritionstudies.org. Okay, my next favorite author is Dr. Michael Greger. Dr. Michael Greger wrote How Not to Die. He also wrote How Not to Diet. Now, this book here, How Not to Diet, is the sequel to How Not to Die. So in the first book, Dr. Greger talks about how he became interested in nutrition after his grandmother regained her health on the Pritikin diet, which is largely plant-based. So he started delving into the science, and he now has a team of volunteers and workers that help him read all the scientific literature. And I don't know whether you've ever tried to read scientific literature, but it takes a really, really long time. You have to have a keen eye and you have to work out what is the rubbish and what is the good stuff. So he has people that do that for him. And then he assembles it all in bite-sized chunks. And he has a website called nutritionfacts.org, and you can see him do his very short bite-sized chunks of information about these studies on all things nutrition in video, which is really, really good. And he does those every single week. So he also came up with this thing called the Daily Dozen. And these are the 12 foods that he believes you should eat every day to stay healthy. And they are beans, berries, other fruits, cruciferous vegetables, greens, other vegetables, flax, nuts and seeds, whole grains, water, spices, and exercise. And it even has an app that you can track if you're getting this optimal nutrition. It's called the Daily Dozen app, so you can check that out on your app store. So this second book, The How Not to Diet, actually takes it a step further, and he looks at tweaks that you can make to accelerate your fat loss. Things like adding black cumin, garlic powder, and nutritional yeast to your diet. He also talks about nutrient timing, intermittent fasting, and other hacks to get you just to be able to eat food and be healthy without actually ever going on a diet. So it's all supported by the current literature, of course. And he also has two cookbooks, the How Not to Die cookbook and the How Not to Diet cookbook. And as I mentioned before, you can check out Dr. Greger at nutritionfacts.org. Okay, my next author is this lovely man here. His name is Dr. Neil Barnard. He has written a ton of books. He's written the Vegan Starter Kit, which is a really, really good beginner's book, everything you need to know about starting on a plant-based diet. He's written this fantastic book, the Reversing Diabetes book. He's written my very, very, very favorite book, which is called The Cheese Trap. And I love The Cheese Trap so much. The Cheese Trap basically tells you how cheese is evil, and talks about the evilness of the dairy industry and how cheese is making you addicted because it has these things called casomorphins in the cheese. So you can find out more about the cheese trap by going to the Fabulous Health Show and looking at episode 18 for more information on that book. I really like that book, and I have it as an ebook and I have it as an audio book, and I couldn't get it at the library. So there is if you're looking at this video, you can see the cover to the cheese trap there. And please read that book. That is probably one of my favorite books. Dr. Barnard also does amazing work in animal protection and at a governmental level. So his organization, which is the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, has stopped animal testing, stopped animal experiments in universities, and puts healthy food in foods and hospitals, and he's always lobbying the government to improve the dietary guidelines for Americans. So you can check out Dr. Barnard at pcrm.org. Okay, my fourth author is Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He has 2 books. Well, he has more than 2 books, but the 2 books that I'm going to talk to you about today are this one from 2003. It's called Eat to Live. And then he has a brand new one, which I haven't read in full. I've skimmed and I love it already. And this is called Eat for Life, which he wrote in 2020. So Dr. Fuhrman coined the term nutritarian. And basically this is a 90% plant-based whole food diet with 10% of other foods. And he does this because he realizes that some people can't do the whole food plant-based diet. And in his opinion, if you eat 10% of processed foods and other foods, it's not going to upset your health too much. So he suggests that we eat these things called G-bombs daily. So each doctor, even though they're all whole food plant-based doctors, they all have their little nuances. So a G-bomb stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. So Dr. Fuhrman's main message in this book, Eat to Live, is to eat a very large salad every day as your main meal. And this advice is absolutely magnificent. If you swap out one of your main meals of the day, probably lunch, and make it a huge big salad, it will improve your health immeasurably. Because what that does is it gives you maximal nutrition. So that's maximal phytonutrients, vitamins and minerals with minimal calories. So that's a really, really good thing to do on a daily basis. He also talks about the average American being overfed and undernourished. So this new book, the Eat for Life book, this one talks more about lifestyle disease and how to avoid it, how to reverse it with his diet plan. He also has tons of recipes in both of these books. And he also has a website where if you want to buy some of his pre-made foods, such as snack bars and salad dressings and pasta sauces and things like that, that are all highly nutrient dense, you can get them at drfuhrman.com. Okay, Fibre Fueled. I finally bought a book that is hardcover because I was sick of getting the ebooks and not being able to refer to them very easily. So as you can see by this book, I've made a few little notes. Each one of these little stickers here is a note on something that I find really interesting in this book. This is written by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, and he is also known as the Gut Health MD. So if you have problems losing weight, or if you're bloated or you feel sleepy after you eat, this book is for you. If you have Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, or any other gastrointestinal disease, you need to read this book. This book is the science on the gut and why you feel like you do and how you can fix it. So I talk about this book a lot in episode 26 of the Fabulous Health Show. So you can go back there and have a look at that. And we talk all about the benefit of fiber in your diet and how it fixes your gut. So this book also has a meal plan and lots of recipes so that you can get your guts working properly. And he's also doing a gut challenge. Actually, it starts on the 1st of January 2022, and you can find him at the PlantBasedAthlete.com. So this is probably one of my favorite books, Fibre Fueled. Okay, what's next? I'm reading this right now, another book that I bought. You see, I've just started buying actual books. It's good. This is called The Plant-Based Athlete. It's by Matt Frazier and Robert Cheek. So Matt is an ultra marathon runner, and he runs the website nomeatathlete.com, whilst Robert Cheek is a plant-based bodybuilder who is the owner of the website veganbodybuilding.com. And this book focuses on macros and getting enough calories for athletic endeavors. So when I say macros, I mean the macronutrients. So that's protein, carbohydrates, fat, and alcohol, although they take alcohol out of the mix because if you're an athlete, you don't want to have any alcohol, but it is a macronutrient. So if you're one of those people that likes tracking things, then this book is probably for you. But let me tell you, you might be a bit discouraged when you find out that you only track things for like once. You track them, then you just repeat, and then you don't have to track things anymore. But as long as you find out what your macros are, then you'll be fine. So the other thing that this book does is it has meal plans from many world-class athletes of all disciplines, such as running, martial arts, basketball, kayaking, cycling, swimming, figure skating, you name it. If there's a sport, it's in this book, yeah? And if you want to see what the world-class athletes in that sport are eating, then this book will tell you that. And there's also tons of recipes in there as well. In fact, all these books have recipes, which is fantastic. Okay, next book, Sad to Glad. I love this. This is called A Vibrant Guide to a Healthful Lifestyle Through a Whole Food Plant-Based Nutrition. It's by Misty Young and Sherry Carey Baum. I interviewed Misty Young for episode 51. This is a really good little book for beginners. It talks about the benefits of a plant-based lifestyle, the basics of making plant-based meals, how to get started. There's information on all the vitamins and minerals, and of course, there are recipes as well. And you can get this book on fabuloushealth.net on the Amazon store. In fact, you can you see this? Hang on. Look at that. You can get all these books on the Fabulous Health Amazon store. And I really hope that there is a book in there for you. And if you can't afford to buy the books, then do what I did and just go down to your local library and borrow them, read them. You can take pictures of the bits that you like so that you can keep them for reference, or you can get them on Kindle or audiobook, which seems to be a lot less expensive than buying the paper copy of the book. I like paper copies of the book, and I'm going to start buying them more often so that I can refer to them more often. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a gift card and you don't know what to do with it, get one of those books. So I'm always looking for guests on the Fabulous Health Show. If you know anyone who would make a great guest for me to interview, please send an email to terri@fabuloushealth.net. And of course, head over to fabuloushealth.net for all the other episodes. As I say, this is episode 54. And so you've got 54 episodes to watch and to listen to. And if you're interested in taking your health to the next level, then I'm a whole food plant-based nutritionist. I'm university qualified. I have a master's in human nutrition, and I can help you. I've got a fantastic course called The Quick Road to Fabulous Weight Loss that you can do online, or you can work with me one-on-one. So I hope you have a fabulous day, and I'll see you next week.